Up until about 6 months ago, I had only really ever made or eaten one type of falafel. It's your basic chickpeas, onion, parsley, spices, etc. That is until my good friend Joseph invited us over to his house for lunch where he made Egyptian style falafel. Mind blown. Incredibly simple, delicious, and he used something other than chickpeas that I was not expecting. Well, what I'd like to do is put mine and his to the test to see which one I like more, and maybe try one other version that I've never had. But first, we need to start by soaking some chickpeas. Sound good? Let's cook. I'm going to be adding 1 cup or 454 grams of chickpeas or garbanzo beans to a container and then completely covered in cold water by about 4 to 6 inches. Next, what you want to do is add a lid on it and then place it in a cool, dark place to soak for in between 12 and 24 hours. After that amount of time, strain the chickpeas. Then what I like to do is give it a quick rinse under cold water. Just get rid of any of that excess water it's been soaking in for all those hours. Then simply set it to the side. If for some reason you don't have the time or the opportunity to soak these garbanzo beans for 12 to 24 hours, what you can do is cover them completely with boiling water and then mix in a half teaspoon or 2 grams of baking soda. This will sort of help accelerate the process, and then let it sit for 1 hour. Then drain it and then go to this next procedure. I've got 1 medium-sized yellow onion. You could use a red, a white, or a sweet onion. After you remove those peels, be sure to always save these, put them in the freezer for a later date to make stock. When it comes to roughly chopping them, you can do whatever you want. I slice it in half, then I slice it into little wedges. Next, I have 5 garlic cloves. We just want to slice off that root end. Now, for parsley, always give it a good rinse and shake it several times to get it as dry as possible. Next, we've got some flat leaf Italian parsley. We're going to need a pretty packed cup or 25 grams of this, and this is probably the only time I'm not going to have you use the stems, although there are so much flavor in them. The problem is they'll be a little bit too chunky and could make the falafel separate when we fry them, so you're going to have to pick them right off the stems. Continuing on picking the fresh Italian flat leaf parsley, and when I say a pretty packed 1 cup, if I press it down and it comes right up to that top part of the cup, we are good. Also, parsley stems, great for stock. Put them in that same bag with those onions in the freezer. And for the cilantro, we are going to need a half cup of lightly packed or 12 grams of cilantro leaves. Again, press it down, goes right back to the top. We're good to go. Now I have 2 green onions, slice off the ends and then roughly chop them. Does not have to be perfect in any way. All right, time to make these. I'm going to add my drained garbanzo beans to a 14-cup food processor, add on the lid, and then pulse them. The goal here is to get them to a nice medium coarse. You may have to stop it and scrape it with a rubber spatula. If you pulse it, I feel like you can get around doing that. These look perfect. Let's set them to the side in a large bowl. Scrape as much as you can out. Does not have to be perfect. You can put the bowl and blade right back on the food processor. Again, it does not need to be cleaned. It's all going to the same place. Let's add in our onions, our green onions. Next, the garlic cloves. And then, of course, we've got all that parsley. And then we have the fresh cilantro leaves. Now be sure to add on the top, and then what we're going to do is pulse it again. You are definitely going to need a rubber spatula. It does not matter. The pulsing will not solve the problem of bringing everything back to the bottom. So scrape it maybe 1 or 2 times. What we're looking here is for a fine mince on the herbs and on the onions. This looks great at this point. We're going to add the garbanzo beans back in here. Then we're going to add in 1 tablespoon or 18 grams of sea salt, 2 teaspoons or 7 grams of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon or 2 grams of ground coriander, then a half teaspoon or 1 gram of black pepper. Pulse all of these ingredients together. Again, use that rubber spatula to scrape all the sides to mix everything together. This is crucial here. Don't be overwhelmed. I promise there's a method to this madness. Continue to pulse the ingredients. And to my commies out there, I'm sure you're like, what's with the back and forth out of the food processor? The problem is if you put everything in there all together at once, 2 problems. It may be overly chunky because you couldn't get all the ingredients mixed together, or you over process it and it's like liquidy. You might as well make hummus at this point. Don't get frustrated. Stick with the game plan. I promise you this procedure is foolproof. Here's what we do now. Once it gets to a little bit finer grind like this, maybe 40 to 50 quick pulses in total, what I like to do at this point is taste it. There's no raw eggs in there. Does it need more seasoning? Also, I know when it's done. Take a small little handful and press it together. Does it hold shape? Excellent. Now transfer all of the filling right to a large bowl. And then for a little secret here, what we want to do is add in 1 teaspoon or 5 grams of baking powder, not baking soda. Then using a rubber spatula, fold all those ingredients together until they are combined. This is going to help make it nice and light and fluffy. And now you have a couple of options. You can simply roll these out by hand into little balls, or they make a falafel scoop, which is awesome. You just kind of load it up and it's got a spring in there and it pops right out, or just a regular smaller scooper. Any of those will work. I'm going to use the falafel scooper. It's too cool. But first, we need to heat up some oil. So I have a 2-quart rondeau. You could also use a regular sauce pot or even a deeper pot if you wanted to. I like the larger pot for more surface area. Now we're going to add in enough neutral flavored oil to fill the pot up halfway. Crank the heat up to medium. Now in the meantime, we can go and form our falafel balls. So pull the spring down if you've got one of those falafel scoopers, then press the other side very well with a spoon. We want to pack it in nice and tight. Should look just like this. Then add it to a sheet tray lined with parchment paper. You can also put these right into the oil. Speaking of oil, let's check the temperature. We're right around 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 176 degrees Celsius. This is perfect frying temperature. Add in the falafel balls one at a time. They're going to cook for between 2 and 3 minutes per side. Once they start to become nice and golden brown like this, just give them a quick flip and continue to cook them for 2 to 3 minutes on that other side. Once they are done cooking, remove them and let them dry out on paper towels for just a minute or two. And just because I'm curious, hey, let's crack one of these open and see what we've got. Beautiful, light, fluffy, nice green flavor, fantastic. Now, if you aren't going to use all of this batter in one cook, you can cover it tightly with plastic wrap and put in the refrigerator for up to 3 days. This will freeze well. Just be sure to thaw it for 1 day before taking it out, reshaping them, and frying them. And I may have eaten one of these. I can't help myself. It's too good. Cannot wait to put these side by side. Okay, next, for Joseph's recipe. So good, so simple. First, instead of chickpeas, they use fava beans. I use this brand, Ziad, super cheap. It was like $1.59. They are split, they are shelled. You have to use both of these, okay? You cannot buy ones that are not shelled or not split. You will be soaking and ripping the shell off all day. I'll never forget my buddy Paul when we were in international cuisine. He probably spent the entire 8 hours of culinary school taking the shell off fava beans. Horrible. Okay, here's what you need to do. Add 1 cup or 454 grams of cracked split fava beans to a container. Completely cover it with about 4 to 6 inches of cold water. Add on a lid. Then place it in a cool, dark place for 12 to 24 hours. Since I did this yesterday, I'm stacking it right over my chickpeas. Then, once they are done soaking, we are going to drain them, rinse them in cool water, just like the garbanzo beans. Get any of that excess old water off of there, and then briefly set them to the side. Now, I've been consulting with my buddy Joseph for the last several weeks over these Egyptian-style falafel. Well, because he's from Egypt, he knows best. The one thing I just cannot get over, it's only 5 ingredients. That's it. And the simplicity of them is what makes them so beautiful and so delicious. Here's what's in it. The same amount of parsley as the chickpea falafel, 1 cup or 25 grams of just the leaves. Green onions, instead of 2, I'm using 1 bunch, which usually totals about 8 total green onions. Slice off the ends and then roughly chop it just like the other ones. Now to make these falafel, let's add our fava beans right to that 14-cup food processor. We're going to place on the lid and then pulse it just like the garbanzo beans. You may need to come back with a rubber spatula and scrape down the sides. Once it gets to that medium coarse grind, this looks perfect. We're setting it to the side in a bowl. Put the bowl and blade, again, do not need to be perfectly clean, along with the parsley and the green onions on the food processor. Place on the lid and then pulse it again. You are going to need to grab that rubber spatula just like in the other one to make sure you get a nice fine mince on these. Now, at this point, we are going to add in our fava beans. The exact same process. I'm sticking to it. Even though the ingredients are a little bit different, it's important to stick with the same process so that we have a nice texture. We're adding in 1 tablespoon or 18 grams of sea salt. Put back on that top and pulse it. One thing I'm noticing here, though, with this batter is it's a little bit wetter, and that can mean that it may be hard to form, but it also probably will mean they're a little bit lighter, a little bit more fluffy, and a little bit more moisture in there. Again, taste it and then see if we can form it and keep shape. Actually, we're good here. It's a little bit wetter, but you can absolutely still form it into shape. Set it to the side in a large bowl, and in the exact same manner, we're adding in 1 teaspoon or 5 grams of baking powder. Fold the ingredients together with a rubber spatula until they are combined. This looks awesome. Okay, to form these. Now what Joseph did, he did not use a falafel scooper. All he did was form it into a ball with his hands and then pressed it down until it forms a little disc. Then he uses a little bit of sesame seeds and sprinkles just a few on the top. Does not have to be perfect in any way. He would pat them down just like this, and you can make a few of these, or what he did, as soon as they're done being formed, he went straight into that hot 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 176 degrees Celsius oil. Cook them for 2 to 3 minutes in the exact same manner. Give them a flip and cook them for another 2 to 3 minutes. They should be nice golden brown like this. Fantastic. Once they're done cooking, you set them to the side on paper towels for a minute or two to drain off any excess oil. And just like with the chickpea falafel, let's open them up. They're a little bit greener, definitely a little fluffier. These are going to be so good. Both falafel are done. They look fantastic. Now, there are a couple options when it comes to serving sauces. The first one is a tahini sauce. Now, you've seen me make this in my kofta kebab recipe. Definitely check it out. If not, another classic sauce would be the garlic sauce. This is very easy to do. Here's how you do it. I'm adding a half cup or 70 grams of garlic cloves to a food processor along with 1 teaspoon or 6 grams of sea salt. We want to pulse this and mix it until it becomes finely minced. You're going to need to use a rubber spatula to get everything down to the bottom. At this point, we're adding in 2 tablespoons or 15 milliliters of water and 2 tablespoons or 15 milliliters of lemon juice. This should help move things around. The goal here is to get it to a very fine mince. I know I'm good when it's nice and creamy like this. Perfect. At this point, we are going to add back on the lid, remove that center cap because we want to pour some in while continuing to process on a high speed. I've got 2 cups or 480 milliliters of neutral flavored oil. We are going to whip it until it becomes essentially like mayonnaise. This looks pretty similar to mayo. It's nice and fluffy. The flavor, absolutely fantastic. The time has come. It's time to bring in the big guns. Meet Tony, aka Tony Snacks, aka Tony Two Plates, aka Naf Man. That's right, he has his own falafel video game and is the inventor of the famous falafel shots. He has been known to eat 24 falafel at any one sitting, and as of recent, he ate most of our falafel product as we were on a huge photo shoot for a Middle Eastern company that featured falafel. Luckily, we made it through. So I've got my guy, one of my best friends, Tony Two Plates, the foremost expert in North America on falafel. We're first going to start off with my version. Next is Joseph. Joseph is from Egypt, so I'm up against some stiff competition here. Let's give this one a try.
I don't know if I can fit this one.
Yeah, do it. You can do half.
I'm going to do halvesies on this one.
Go ahead. This
What,
was
too loud?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. That's
A little
all right.
bit?
I mean, you're also like half a foot from my ear. It's uncomfortably close up in here. Yeah, got some fun. It's to me that's light and fluffy and airy and it's got some fun flavors. I got one more for you.
You got one more for me?
Okay, here's another variation. What if we combine both of them? Here's what I'm going to do. Taking 1 cup or 260 grams of Joseph's falafel and adding it to a bowl, then 1 cup or 260 grams of my falafel and adding it to a bowl, and then mixing it till combined. Now, in my research, I noticed there were several Lebanese recipes in Arabic that use this combination. I'm very excited. Use a scooper, make a tight little ball, sprinkle on some sesame seeds, and in the exact same manner, we're going to fry it for 2 to 3 minutes per side in 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 176 degrees Celsius neutral flavored oil or until golden brown and cooked throughout. Tony, this one may be it. But let's see what you got. It's this last one.
Oh, yeah.
Good?
And after trying each one, man, I gotta say, I'm going with this one.
And you heard it here first. The expert has chosen. I promise this is the recipe that'll go in the description below and on my website. Don't go anywhere because we're going to plate this up. We got one more thing. I place them on a small plate because I really enjoy serving them up as an appetizer, and then I finish with finely minced fresh parsley and then dip them in that garlic sauce, also known as toom. So delicious, so easy to make. I know you can make these at home, and I promise you're going to love them. Now, if you want to pair this up with something or even put it in something, check out my homemade pita recipe. I've got an awesome video. I'll see you on there. But first,
Falafel shots. You ready?
let's do it.
Salud.